Hello, 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 everybody. How are we doing here tonight? My name is Jacob. Welcome to Nerd Nite. Clap it up. Da, 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 da. I am so glad to see you all here. I remember last month I was walking here in 70-degree weather. Some things have changed. But I'm so glad to see all of you on this lovely Nerd Nite. This is our 99th Nerd Nite. Can we clap for that? Nerd Nite 99. Whew, it feels good. Which is now a good time to plug Nerd Nite 100. Will not take place in May. No. Oh, I love the audible gasp for not in May. It will take place in June at Top of the Park on June the 19th. But I'll keep on talking about that throughout the night. So, anyways, I have some preliminary announcements to make before we get to our presentations. Let's see here. So let's start out by saying thank you. Nerd Nite is brought to you by Ann Arbor District Library, and we are so glad to be here with you guys doing this sort of thing. Hey. Ooh, I'm so glad to work at Ann Arbor District Library. Boop. Special thanks to our lovely and lively venue, Live. We're so glad to be here. Let's clap for Live. And let's make sure we're tipping our bartenders, eating lots of food, getting drinks. Yes. And thank you, most of all, we have to thank you, filthy little nerds. Yeah! You make the night. Oh, and finally, let me introduce our speakers this evening. First, we have Leif Laufeyjarsen, who's going to tell us, his presentation is called Tarot Laid Bare. Very excited for that. Then we have Melissa F. Kalin, who's going to tell us a little bit about Chasing the Aurora. And last, we have Paul Buzzard, Grumpy Cats, Urine-Soaked Socks, and the Kardashians. Those are my three favorite things. Or, no. Oh, no, never mind. But first, before we get to there, it's time for your Nerd Nite Minute. Keep it clapping. Oh, my God, don't ever stop clapping. Okay, so your Nerd Nite Minute is when I get to spend 3 minutes talking to you about something that I'm nerdy about and very obsessed with. I'm very excited to tell you about this story of Pauline Parker and Juliet Hume. I've been obsessed with them since I was like 15. But I call this presentation your grandma's favorite mystery writer bludgeoned a woman to death when she was 15 in a lesbianic folie à deux. Whew, we'll get there. Okay, so on your left, you'll see Pauline Parker. On the right, you'll see Juliet Hume. Juliet is 16 and Pauline is 15. So let's imagine it's 1953. It's New Zealand. Pauline's going to Catholic school. She's 15. She's like, I hate this. This really sucks. Then one day, Juliet's a new student. Juliet is English, and she's rich. She's filthy rich. Pauline, not so much. Pauline's dad is like a fishmonger. Juliet's dad is like a college guy, and her mom's a marriage therapist. And they live on this beautiful, like, mansion, gardens, that kind of thing. So they immediately hit it off, but, like, they, like, really hit it off. It's very toxic. They're like Pauline's like, do you like Mario Lanza? And Juliet's like, I love Mario Lanza. Apparently Mario Lanza's like a singer from the 50s. So they begin to bond over like 1950s movie stars. And I don't know if realize is the right word, but they find out that when they're together, they're able to go somewhere in their brains called the fourth dimension. So the fourth dimension is like a beautiful medieval land where they get to like play act out all of their fantasies, which is cool if you think about it, but it's not pretty cool. We'll find out together. And in there, they write stories and they're creative. And in this world, they're not Julia and Pauline, they're Deborah and Gina. And Deborah and Gina can do things that maybe Julia and Pauline can't, like kiss on the mouth, or be besties, or, plot the murder of their mother. So, I can't read this quote good. I'm just gonna paraphrase it. So they love going to the movies. Long story short, they are really into each other. It's toxic. Juliet's parents are getting divorced, and they are sending Juliet to live with their aunt in South Africa. Clearly, this wrecks the girls. They're heartbroken. They don't know what to do. But the parents say, we'll give you 3 weeks to hang out together, and then it's over. In that time, they go to the movies, and this quote is so interesting to me. I will try to read it. We were then driven to the movies, yada, yada, yada. And then they see a movie with Orson Welles. You see scary Orson Welles in the corner? Oh my gosh. Through the photos, he did not look too bad, but it's appalling. He is dreadful. I have never seen in my life anything that's so in the same category of hideousness. But I adore him. So that's such an interesting quote to me because it really kind of felt like growing up gay, where you're like, I don't like boys. Boys are gross. I don't want to be around boys. But I think I kind of adore them. So it's like complicated, right? There's a lot of complicated things going on between these two girls. So then that night, we returned home and talked for some time about it, getting ourselves more and more excited. Eventually, we enacted how each saint would make love in bed. So that's what they call their favorite actors in the fourth dimension. So like Mel Ferrer is a saint, or Mario Lanza is a saint. So they practiced making love on each other as each saint would do, only doing the first 7. As it was, by the time it was 7:30 in the morning, we felt exhausted and very satisfied. Wow, I want to love like that. 7 different saints? 7:30 in the morning? My Lord. So I should also mention, we know so much about them because Pauline, bless her heart, kept a diary. So we know all about their inner worlds, and we know about their plan to kill Pauline's mother. In that last 3 weeks that they were together, Pauline goes, you know, it would solve all our problems if we killed my mom. Which, if you think about it, doesn't solve any problems. You're still not going to South Africa. Juliet's still going to South Africa. It solves nothing. So, it's just kind of morbid now that I'm up here talking about it. So this is the trail where they say, hey, Mom, do you want to go for a walk? And she's like, yeah. A short story from the fourth dimension that they have is somebody drops something, like a shiny jewel, and then like the king bends over to grab it, and that's when the king is slain. So they translate that to real life, and Juliet throws something sparkly on the ground, the mom bends over, and then Pauline pulls a brick that's wrapped up in a stocking and bludgeons her mother to death. That's wild. That is crazy. And you will see in her diary, why did she keep a diary with all these details? The day of the happy event, June 1950. The happy event? Pauline, that's terrible. So they're immediately caught and sent to prison, but because they're 16 and 15, they only spend 5 years in prison each. Not a big deal. But they're only released, the government says, we'll release you guys from prison if you promise to never talk to each other again. Which is, whoa. But, so Pauline grows up, she becomes a principal of a school. I didn't expect that to get a laugh. That's just the truth of it. Juliet, however, you might be familiar with the writer Anne Perry. Anne Perry is a very famous mystery writer. She sold over 20 million books. Her works have been translated into 10 different languages. Has written over 100 novels, which makes sense because she was telling all these stories up in the fourth dimension. So yeah, she's got 100 novels in her. Anyways, it doesn't come out until like 2005. Anne Perry is like, guys, guess what? I'm Juliet Hume, and I did that. I totally did that. But she denies any sort of lesbianism, and what she really says is, I only helped Pauline because if I didn't help Pauline, Pauline was gonna kill herself. So I really didn't bludgeon this woman to death. But of course she did. If you are, after all of that, if you are interested to learn more about these gals, go to YouTube for free. Okay, so this is Heavenly Creatures. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's the story I just told you. And if you think that I spoiled the movie for you, somehow I didn't. There is so much more to the movie. I love it. It's directed by Peter Jackson, who is this fella here. You might know him from Lord of the Rings. This is one of his first movies, and it's Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky. I love these actresses. Love Kate Winslet. It's her first movie role ever. So me being a library person, I'm all about free stuff. You go to YouTube, you type in Heavenly Creatures, you'll see somebody uploaded it for free in 1080p with no commercials. So you go home tonight and watch it. At any rate, this was your Nerd Nite Minute. Please clap for me. So I swear this is as dark as it's gonna get. All the other presentations are a lot lighter, at least I think. So allow me to introduce our first speaker. Leif first began reading tarot in the 1990s. After stepping away for some time, he has returned to it and now reads professionally. With a BA in history from Eastern Michigan University, he has an insatiable curiosity about the origins of everything he studies. So when he picked up tarot again, he delved into its beginnings, seeking not just to practice it, but to truly understand how it works. Let's welcome Leif.
Got you, thanks. All right, welcome. Thank you, Nerd Nite, for having me again. Thank you, one person applauded, thank you. There you go. That was so shameless too, right? And you fell for it, thank you. Like I said, I do have a degree in history, and my company is Blue Lotus Tarot Readings down there. And that is why when I started reading tarot, I asked myself a lot of questions that I realized a lot of other people weren't asking, and that's the result. And that's where my talk begins on the history of tarot. But before we start that, we have to give some definitions. Like everything in tarot, there's a lot of subjectivity here. So let's talk about the way I'm going to talk about certain words in this speech. Divination, seeking understanding or guidance through symbolic means. It is not the same as fortune telling. So a lot of people, when I read for parties of drunk people, they say, oh, he's going to predict our future. That is actually not what tarot reading is about. Tarot reading actually reads the present, and in my opinion, nothing can actually read the future. Now, it is true that when you read tarot, one of the spreads is past, present, future. So how does that work? I'll show it to you. What's your name, sir? Sorry? Cameron. I'm going to stick my hand into a fire. Can you tell me what's going to happen after that? I'm going to burn it. Okay. Now I can decide not to stick my hand in my fire. Now, did Cameron just predict the future? No, a lot of uncertainty. No, he did not. He made a logical assumption based on information he had in the present, and that's how tarot can read the future, but it is not the same as fortune telling. Cartomancy is just divination through the use of cards, usually through playing cards. Oh, as the name literally means, cards, mancy, like using magic, right? So when I say cartomancy, I'm talking about fortune telling or divination through the use of ordinary playing cards. And there's several methods of doing that, but I don't have time to talk about that tonight. A lot of people want to know what's the difference between oracle cards and tarot cards. With oracle cards, there's no tradition, there's no rules. Anyone who wants to make an oracle deck can. Would you like to make an oracle deck? Yeah? Okay, you can. She looks happy. She's going to. You're going to, aren't you? Okay, she will. Anybody can make one, and it's completely subjective. There's no tradition, there's no rules. Anybody can make an oracle deck. Finally, a lot of people don't know exactly what a tarot deck is or what it consists of. So, 78 cards in total, usually, although I have decks with different amounts. 22 are the trumps. You just ruined tarot for me. Thank you. I never thought of that before. Let's call it the major arcana. Can we do that? Yeah, okay. So we have the major arcana consisting of 22 cards. And then we have the minor arcana, which is divided up into two parts. 40 pips cards with 4 suits, wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. You might be tempted to associate those with ordinary playing cards, but they're not the same, and there's not agreement as to how they translate. They're separate traditions. Playing cards are actually older than tarot cards. Then there's 16 face cards. So you think queens, kings, knights, and pages, right? So ordinary playing cards is missing the pages, or the knights, I guess. It's missing the pages. I put queens first because kings and queens are equal, so you can put either one first, right? Thank you. Okay. The history, where did it come from? You will hear a lot of authors, and you will hear specifically people who practice tarot say that it comes from the Romani, China or India. There is some evidence, but as a historian, when I look at that evidence, I think there's no way that's true. It really comes from Muslim Egypt, of all places. Wands were originally polo sticks, but since Europeans didn't know what a polo stick looked like, they're like, oh, they're staves. So, the earliest deck that we have is this one here. I'm sorry about the resolution. This is actually a beautiful deck, just pretend. It is handmade with gold inlay. You see the shiny bit down here? This is the Fool, the Empress, and the Two of Cups. You can see the Two of Cups is just 2 cups and not much else. That'll be important later, right? The Minor Arcana was not illustrated in any decks until later, and we'll find out when that is. A little bit of sleight of hand just for fun. Okay, esoteric tarot, or tarot that is used for divination or magical purposes. The first book that we have that talked about that was Le Monde Primitif, published in 1781 by Antoine Cour de Gibillon. And this is what he says in his book on the tarot. If one proceeded to announce that there is still nowadays a work of the former Egyptians, one of their books that escaped the flames that devoured their superb libraries, and which contains the purest doctrines on interesting subjects, everyone would hasten to study such an invaluable book. And he actually goes on like this, but I only have 20 minutes, so I had to abbreviate that. He sounds kind of like a snake oil salesman in that, doesn't he? Yeah. I will tell you, he was actually an intelligent person, and he was an honest person, and yet he would say stuff like this. And this is his version of the tarot that he did. So that is something important to remember. In the 19th century, a lot of people think of it as fortune telling. In the 18th and 19th century, it was considered to be a magical, spiritual exercise. It was focused almost entirely on the major arcana, and fortune telling was considered to be something that women did, and it was beneath men. I'm just the messenger, okay? So, and now I will do, what about the Egyptian theory, right? I will now go through all of the evidence that there is for the tarot being from ancient Egypt. It's just a guy holding up his hands going, I don't know. There really isn't any. And yet, throughout the 19th century, people kept on publishing works about ancient Egypt. And there's this chamber beneath the Sphinx with 22 stones that were supposed to represent the major arcana. But it's simply not there. But it just kept on getting repeated and repeated. And so a lot of people still act as if it's true. So in the 19th century, various authors started connecting it with Pythagorean numerology, alchemy, astrology, and the Kabbalah, either adding on to or reinforcing the claims of Gibillon. Now, I spelled Kabbalah different from Jewish Kabbalah because they are different traditions, and I want to have respect for the Jewish community. It's not the same thing. Many decks from the 19th century have Egyptian themes, like I've said before. And the tarot began the century as an obscure practice performed by a small number of weirdos, and ended the century as an obscure practice performed by a larger number of weirdos, but still not mainstream. It was still something that you did to impress people at dinner parties, and it made you a bit strange. Again, fortune telling was considered beneath men. Most authors focused on the major arcana and used it for spiritual development. The Golden Dawn Thoth deck, which you may have heard of, was a separate deck that if you get a tarot deck now, the Golden Dawn deck will be different enough that I personally consider it to be a different tradition. It has different orders, and it has princesses instead of pages, so it's different. So there's frequently called the Book of Thoth, again, reinforcing that idea that the tarot came from ancient Egypt, and that the major arcana is like a book that you can read and become a more advanced spiritual person. Good? Okay. So this is what you've all been waiting for. Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. Do you recognize these cards down here? Yeah, this is the one you've seen in movies and stuff? Yeah. So this is the same cards that we saw before in the Visconti deck. That's the Fool, that's the Empress, and that's the Two of Cups. Look, there's people there. There's stuff going on. There's something important here. So this is the first deck that actually, the first modern deck, the first esoteric deck that illustrated the minor arcana instead of just the major arcana, sorry. Arthur Waite was, he was the author. If you've heard it called the Rider-Waite deck, that's because Rider was the publishing company. Personally, I feel that Pamela Coleman Smith deserves more credit than the publisher, so I call it, and many people with me call it, the Waite-Smith deck instead. So this deck is based on the only historical deck to illustrate the minor arcana. There was one, and it's similar, but not, it's not like a copy, right? But there are some decks, some cards that are very similar. Waite was actually a Catholic, right? So he used it to become a better Catholic. He wasn't very successful. He was very difficult to get along with. I've met much nicer Catholics than Waite was. The standard tarot deck, today, it was the reason why it's the only one to illustrate the minor arcana, and that's the only reason. If you read Waite's book about his guide to the tarot, he spends more time complaining about cours de Gibelin than he does actually telling you what the cards mean. Yeah. Smith was actually deeply involved in the creation of the deck. She wasn't just an artist. She wasn't just like the tambourine player to the rock band. She was heavily involved in coming up with the images that were on the deck. So she definitely deserves credit. And she's cuter too, right? Yeah. I like that smile. So how does tarot work? I know a lot of people who practice tarot that never actually stop to think and ask, how does it work? Well, there are several theories. One is, forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly, apophenia and patriarchy. Not patriarchy, that's different. We project meanings on the card similar to a Rorschach test. So you look at the card and you can tell what the person's state of mind is by how they respond to it. In my readings, I actually do something similar, but that's not all there is to it. Then there's projective psychological testing. So through the language of symbols, we're able to access the subconscious, and that has some currency among psychologists. There's actually now a book out on the neuroscience of tarot. So tarot is actually starting to begin to gain some sort of like scientific credibility. Before I explain the Forer-Barnum effect, I'm not a psychic, but I am getting a really strong vision right now. It's a very special message for Melissa? Yes, can you come up here, please? There's something that the spirits would like to tell you. Give her some applause, this is not easy. Now, Melissa, the spirits would like to tell you that you are going to meet a tall, dark, handsome stranger. Yes, when I say like handsome, hot. He's going to be hot, yes. So wait, they're telling me you're going to meet him soon. Yeah, you want to know how soon? How you doing? Give her some applause. That's the Forer-Barnum effect. If you tell somebody that you have a message specifically for them, they're more likely to believe you. So if someone comes and tells you, I have a message for you, you need a tarot reading, that's the Forer-Barnum effect, it's probably a scam. If I personally feel someone really needs a tarot reading, I give it to them for free, right? Then there's magical explanations. The cards shape your fate. Now, who in their right mind would ever get a tarot reading if they were gonna shape their fate? Like, I was gonna marry Jim, but now I got a tarot reading, so now I'm gonna marry Susie instead, right? Does that make sense to anyone? I don't know, some people do it. I don't practice that way. I don't believe in that way, but that's one of the ways that people believe. The other one is that cards allow spirits to communicate with you. Sometimes in my readings, that seems to be what's going on. And then there's the theory of ki, which is coined by my future ex-wife, Benabel Wen here. I met her in person, she's really nice. That's the idea that the reader, myself, the querent or the seeker, that would be you, we form kind of like a bond and then we communicate through the collective unconscious through the cards. And the collective unconscious is also known as the fourth dimension. No, it's not. The collective unconscious is a Jungian idea that all of human knowledge ends up in this receptacle, and so all human knowledge is a place that you can access through various means, including the tarot. So these methods are from her book, Holistic Tarot, Benabel Wen. So just have to give credit to her. Oh, right, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have to address the elephant in the room, which is the tarot powered by Satan? And you can guess what my answer is. Just like the theory that the tarot comes from Egypt, there's no evidence to suggest that there's any connection whatsoever between the tarot and Satan. Everyone who says that the tarot comes from Satan are not practicing tarot readers. So are there people who practice Satanism and read tarot? Yes. Are there people who play tennis and practice the worship of Satan? Yes. Are there accountants that practice Satanism? And the answer is yes. But we all know that there is no connection between tennis and the worship of Satan. That's all I have to say. Tarot today. It is hugely popular, but not as popular as Taylor Swift. There are hundreds of decks out there. I can't keep track of them all. There are hundreds of books on how to read tarot. I can't keep track of them all. I say, oh, have you read this person? They're like, no, I have no idea who that is, because there's just too many books out there. You can't keep track of them. Speaking of Taylor Swift, it's very feminine. Almost every author on the tarot nowadays is a woman, and almost every practitioner is a woman as well. I'm a bit suspect myself, so there you go. It's still vilified in mainstream media as something sinister. Who has ever seen the tarot represented as positive or helpful in Hollywood? That's right, nobody. And that, who, is there someone who has? Because I would love to see that, yeah?
I can't think of a movie, but I feel like it's always like portrayed as helpful.
Really? Can we hang out sometime? Okay, excellent, yeah, because I would love to hear. I've never come across that. It doesn't mean it's not out there, I just haven't seen it, right? Okay. And there are some accepted norms, but this is one of the things that really people will talk emotionally about. Tarot, this, that, or the other thing, or this card means that, or the other thing, but there is no Pope of Tarot, okay? It's not me, I'm already the Pope of Goth, and I can't be the Pope of two things. It's not Waite, he was just like a spoiled child who happened to come up with one idea. It's not Gibelin, because he was a weirdo. It's not Benabel Wen, because Benabel Wen always says, this is my way, this is what works for me, but that doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. So there is no accepted standard rules for tarot. If people get in your face and get emotional about what one thing means or another, just let them, they're not gonna listen. But just know that everything is subjective. There's no single book, there's no Bible of tarot. So you wanna be a tarot reader. Meditate and practice. Anyone can do it, even my cat. Look at him, there he is at work. It doesn't take any special talent to become a tarot reader. It just takes lots and lots of practice, and meditating really helps. Knowledge is necessary, yes, but not as much as you would think, right? So that is hopefully my illuminating speech on tarot. Are there any questions? Yes. So it's funny that oh yeah, right, I'm sorry. So she said that in the 18th, 19th century, there was somebody who was into tarot. Does that have anything to do with Napoleon? Napoleon himself, as far as I know, did not consult any practitioners. However, his wife did. His wife consulted, if you've ever heard of the Lenormand Oracle deck, she was actually the divinator for Napoleon's wife, but not necessarily Napoleon. And I kind of appreciate you bringing that up, because we kind of think of it as big. Oh, right, I'm sorry. Okay, so the idea that it was Egyptian predates Napoleon's invasion of Egypt. Does that answer your question? So she was saying, did Napoleon invade Egypt in order to discover like tarot artifacts? Oh, okay, so did he bring it back from him? There is no evidence to suggest that Napoleon brought any evidence of tarot back from Egypt. So in that, the idea that it was Egyptian predates Napoleon's invasion. So yeah, there is no evidence that connects Egypt to the tarot in any way, except for Muslim Egypt, but that's before the 15th century. Does that answer your question? Okay, you're really far away. I'm having a hard time hearing you, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm being evasive. Okay, yeah.
So I get it that it's not fortune telling. I get it that there's collective unconscious
What can you expect from it? A lot of that depends on the reader, and a lot of that depends on you. I think of it as guidance and insight. A lot of times, a lot of people would say a new perspective. You can actually be an atheist and not really believe in the tarot at all and still get a different perspective from it. Does that make, so the idea, she asked what someone can expect from a tarot reading, right? So if you get a tarot reading from me, it'll change your life. But a lot of that, just like everything is subjective, right? Different people have different ideas as what the tarot, how it works and what you can expect from it. Does that help? Yes. Okay.
Oh, one more question.
Yes.
Oh, not for me.
Oh, yes. Oh, is he the BT? You know, I kind of, oh, yeah, thank you for reminding me. Is Aleister Crowley the B.T. Barnum of the tarot or of mysticism? In some sense, he had this pattern where he would like come up with some wacky idea, make a whole bunch of money off of it, spend that money, and then come up with some sort of other wacky idea. However, I still think he was really intelligent and he was probably kind of sincere, even if he was a bit of a charlatan at the same time. It really is a gray area to try to read into somebody's mind, but in some sense I feel that, yeah, that's a fair comparison, yeah.
Let's give it up for Leif.
Thank you.
Alrighty, let me see what time it is right now on my very clock. It is 7:34. I'm gonna give you guys 6 minutes to refresh your beverages, use the restroom, tip those bartenders, and I'll see you back at 7:40. I do have a small confession to make. Somebody just showed me that it's not Nerd Nite 99 and it's really Nerd Nite 98. So I don't know. Booing? No, was that ambient booing?
That was an ironic.
You know, it can be Nerd Nite 99 in our hearts. So, without any further ado, please let me introduce our next speaker here. So we have Melissa. Melissa is a 13-year seasoned Aurora chaser who once ditched her husband to hang out with the Milky Way. Who wouldn't? Not your husband, any husband. She accidentally created an AuroraCon and intentionally founded a community for Northern Lights, which now numbers over 127,000 people. Ooh, yeah, clap for me reading numbers. As a child, she could barely hold on to a chemistry beaker. But last year, she was published in her first academic paper as a citizen scientist on the Gannon Storm of May 10th, 2024. Yeah, whoa. By night, she writes books like Beyond the 45th Parallel, The Beginner's Guide to Chasing Aurora. And by day, she's a science communicator, taking calls with NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Let's give it up for Melissa. Come on up.
Oh, I'm back so soon. Hi, everybody. Thank you for that warm welcome, and thank you to Nerd Nite for hosting. And they told me that you got to point the pointer at the thing. No, wait. Let me try that again. Woo! All right. I am Melissa F. Kalin, the founder of the Michigan Aurora Chasers, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the strangely addictive subculture of chasing the aurora. So, This is a bit of a nocturnal hobby. I can kind of tell when I've had a good night on the aurora chase because I come in and I have a bad night in the morning at work. Bad day in the morning at work. And my boss says to me, actually, it's not my boss, it's one of my colleagues. He looks at me and he says, if you look like you haven't had any sleep, that means it's been a really good night, doesn't it? So the Northern Lights, you may know, is a nocturnal phenomenon. And there's a whole subculture of people who are chasing it all the time and trying to see these lights and colors in the night sky. But you have to stay awake pretty late to catch it. I was the girl in science class in 8th grade who could barely hold on to a chemistry beaker, as we heard. My really awesome science teachers, who were really sweet and incredible, actually, would look at me and go, "Aw, you poor thing," and they'd pat me on the back. It was great. But I found a love of science late in life because it led me to the aurora and helped me catch the Northern Lights more often, see it in all its glory, witness it all over the state of Michigan, and share it with others too. That number was 127,000 people in the Michigan Aurora Chasers. That's the community I founded. Are any of you here tonight? Anyone? We've got a pretty big community where we've been helping each other see the Northern Lights in Michigan and beyond. And now I've actually been brought on to help with missions that are discovering more about the aurora in space. So really cool place to be. Now, when I started out, I struggled to see the aurora over and over because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was living in the middle of a light-polluted city. I wasn't staying up late enough. I wasn't driving out far enough. I wasn't giving it enough time. And then finally, one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I realized, oh, there it is. That's the Northern Lights. So one of the things about the aurora borealis is it's actually, the words come from Latin. It means the northern dawn. So northern is borealis, aurora is the dawn. And I love this because what this says to us is that for centuries, people have thought of this as the light at dawn. You can look back into Greek and Roman mythology, and you can actually see that Aurora is named the goddess of the dawn because she is meant to, in the morning, every day before the sun rises, escort the chariot of the sun god Apollo into the sky. And so that is our goddess Aurora, and this is her glowing at 6 o'clock in the morning above the Mackinac Bridge. This was taken last year by a Michigan Aurora Chaser, actually one of my admins. So I am really fortunate to have a great team at the Michigan Aurora Chasers now running the group with me. I've been chasing the Northern Lights for over 13 years. Almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years in a couple weeks. But I didn't start the group until I lived in Michigan for a few years until 2021. That's when we were established. We offer guides and resources on our website. We do workshops and events all year long. And we're now doing a My Aurora experience where you can come out and chase the lights with us, whether they're gonna appear or not. And that's our website, michiganaurorachasers.com, to hook you up. So, we have got the aurora so much, and in fact, I have mentored people in their first year of aurora chasing to capture the Northern Lights. Check it out. This one guy caught it 18 times in like his first 6 months of aurora chasing. I was like, what? Excuse me? I don't see the aurora in Ann Arbor that often, but good for you, man. Good for you. We do catch it a lot. We have live alerts that go out. We do all kinds of forecasting. We look at the science. We look at what we're seeing in the sky. We tell you what you can expect to see in the sky. And someone once called us the Jim Cantori team of aurora chasing. So if you know who Jim Cantori is, and if you hear about them forecasting a hurricane, and you want to see a man standing there in the wind with the rain all over his face reporting on the impact, that's us. We are the Jim Cantori team of aurora chasing. And we also are really privileged in Michigan to have beautiful dark skies where we can look for the aurora. When you're in darker skies and farther north, you're going to see more of it. You're going to see better aurora and possibly more color. So we're actually home to 3 international dark sky parks. They're spread all over the state. And recently, we became home to one of only 23 dark sky sanctuaries. This is an international dark sky sanctuary in the world. So this is located on Beaver Island. Beaver Island Wilderness Area is now an international dark sky sanctuary. That is the darkest rating that you can possibly receive from the International Dark Sky Association. Yeah, we are really proud of them and really excited because the Aurora Chasers will be leading, our group will be leading an Aurora Chase this June. And you're all invited. So I thought, oh man, Nerd Night. Woo! Nerd Night. I better get nerdy. I better go a little deeper. Everyone's heard of the Northern Lights, so we're going to go deeper. We're going to go beyond the aurora to the sub-auroral phenomena. So a lot of people have heard of the Northern Lights. You know that you can look to the north, or sometimes, in the case of May 10th, in the Gannon storm, you can look straight above you, and you can see the Northern Lights in the sky. But if you look other directions in the sky, you can also see what are called sub-auroral arcs. And there are many different types of these that have been appearing around the world. One of them is the continuum emission, or we call it for short a continuum. So this is a photo that was captured by one of my admins, Patrick Gruba, just last October in Michigan. This emission was beautiful and so bright to the eye, and it, you know, I'd like to compare it to lightning, but it was so much straighter than that, so much bigger than that, and so much brighter than that. And this is one of the subauroral phenomena that scientists are really trying to learn more about. They're making new discoveries all the time, and just last week, we were part of a mission, a human spaceflight mission called the Solar Max mission that is studying these from space and trying to learn more about them. Another subauroral arc, this is the popular one, is called Steve. Has anyone heard of Steve? All right, yeah. Who's that? I don't know, probably some dark, handsome man that I have a divination to have a future with. But no, so Steve is, the name actually has a really funny story of where it originated, but it stands for the Subthermal Emission Velocity Enhancement. And Steve is not created by the same forces that create aurora. It's some of the same things, but it's actually, instead of being created by particles that come to us from outer space and get charged up in our atmosphere and collide with air molecules to emit color and light, as aurora do, Steve is actually a stream of hot gases in the atmosphere. And so we're still seeing the color and light emitted from Steve, but it's caused by hot gases instead of electrons and protons. So this is Steve. Here you can see it. It's sort of a mauve or purple ribbon in the sky. Sometimes it looks a little bit white in its ribbon, and sometimes you can even see it in a double arc with the green there. Now, Steve has a friend. We like to joke in the Michigan Aurora Chasers that Aurora and Steve are just hanging out, but then he's got his own picket fence. So the picket fence is actually this striped-looking phenomenon that appears, and I never do the pointer. It appears right along the ribbon in stripes. And sometimes the Steve ribbon and those stripes, the picket fence, are the brightest thing that you see in the sky. So these might actually be like neon green and neon purple, where the aurora, you can hardly make it out without a camera. So this is the picket fence. And the interesting thing about the picket fence is people used to think, oh, it's Steve, and he always has a picket fence. Yeah, sounds like the typical American, right? No. Researchers are discovering that the picket fence is its own auroral phenomena that is separate from Steve itself. So a completely distinctive aurora. Another one that we started seeing all over the place last year is called, actually let me go back one because I want to tell you something else about Steve. So aurora photography is really fascinating because you can see more. You can see more of the colors, you can see more of the light, you can see more of the shapes and formations. Especially if you use a really short shutter speed, you can really capture the action on camera. Now the interesting thing about Steve is that when you're actually seeing it in real time, even over the course of maybe 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you're not going to see all of these stripes at once. Instead, what will happen is you'll see one here, and one here, two here, three here, and they'll bounce around. And so it's like watching this guy play these piano keys in real time, and you're just saying, doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. And when you take a photo, they appear all together. And so that's one of the really cool things about Steve. To watch it in real time, it's just magical. So last year, we started seeing more prominence of the SAR arc, or the stable aurora red arc. This is a deep red band that appears across the sky, and actually researchers are doing work right now in discovering that Steve sometimes transitions into a SAR. So we can have a SAR that's not a Steve, but we can have a Steve that becomes a SAR. And the sort of effects that cause this are heat being emitted from Earth's atmosphere. So this is really heat emissions drifting off of Earth's surface out into outer space. And again, it's a subauroral phenomena that's related to aurora, but not aurora exactly. And we were seeing this all over the country last year. In fact, when you're looking for Steve, you're not necessarily going to look to the north like you would for the Northern Lights. You're going to look overhead. It'll come right above you. Or you're going to look a little bit to the southwest. When you're looking for a SAR arc, we were actually seeing this out west, just due west. And so some of these auroral phenomena, these subauroral arcs, can be pictured around the country. They can be spotted, and they're not always going to be in your north. Now, who's ever taken a photo of an aurora and been like, that's not quite right? There's a little secret in the world of aurora chasing. We have all these beautiful images and all these beautiful formations that you can see, but the camera will always see more than you. It's a little bit of a best kept secret. Cameras capture all light and color in the sky. It's just a really reliable piece of technology that humans have created. Whereas we, as humans, no matter how much I pushed myself, I'm not actually nocturnal. I'm not an owl. I wasn't designed to see in the dark. And so we as humans are limited by our own night vision as to what we can see. So especially if you're in the middle of the city surrounded by light pollution, you might have a harder time seeing aurora. Or if you're not in truly dark skies, if you're not far enough north. Now that depends. I always say that every aurora night is different. So you could have a really strong one that comes to you on the roads of downtown Chicago. It's happened. It happened last year. But that's unusual. Aurora are almost always brighter on camera. What happens is you point your camera north, or maybe anywhere in the sky, if you're looking for a SAR arc or you're looking for Steve, take a photo, even if you see nothing there, and then all of a sudden, pow. Oh, that's it. It's right there. The camera caught it, even if you can't see it. Let's see. Got to point this way. All right. So this timing of the talk tonight is actually a divination because just last week, I participated in my first ever mission, human space flight mission with From 2. Now, From 2 was only in low Earth orbit for about 4 days, from April 1st to April 4th. It was launched by SpaceX with 4 private astronauts on board. And the Solar Max mission was a part of their objectives when they launched into space. So last week, I served as part of the ground support team for this mission. The goal, working with Vehicle Commander Janique Mickelson, Janique was going to watch the aurora from outer space, from above. And all of us citizen scientists here on the ground, we're going to watch the exact same aurora from Earth below. And then we're going to compare our photos and our footage and hold those two things beside each other and do some scientific research to determine, okay, how is aurora different from space than it is from Earth? What were we seeing? Could we spot any emissions or Steve or even fragments in the sky? So this is one of the things that was really helpful on that project. I lost a lot of sleep last week. I'm still kind of recovering. But we stayed up all night, every night that we could, or at least as late as we could. And of course, we had a lot of clouds to contend with as well. Those never help. But our goal was to help identify and classify some of the aurora we were seeing in the sky. Now, this is a free guide that's available to any of you. In fact, a lot of our resources in the Michigan Aurora Chasers are available to all of you on our public website. Go check out the Aurora Field Guide for citizen scientists. This actually is going to show you all the different types of aurora you can see. Here we have the continuum emission, which I already talked about, in a different color, in a different format. We're even seeing some small streaks, which is a type, or fragment-like aurora. They call them fae for short. I love that. It's like fairies. So they're trying to identify more of those too and determine what causes them and where they become present. Now this one is really cool because these are the auroral beads. These little saturated bubbles of color and light. Those sort of ball up when the aurora is starting to get really, really excited. It goes through phases, and it has 3 phases: onset, expansion, and recovery. And when we're going through that expansion, we start to see those beads right as it's like building up in its onset, and that means the expansion is coming. The aurora is about to explode. It's building up all this power and momentum. These pillars or rays or curtains or whatever you want to call them, there's so many shapes. These are they're just bubbling up with power, and they're going to explode higher in the sky, brighter in color, perhaps overhead, and this is the beginning of that expansion. So it's really cool. But there are so many types of aurora now, and it's getting trickier to describe them all the time. It's becoming a little bit like playing Pokemon Go. Anybody play that? I just feel like I'm never going to sleep again because I gotta catch them all. And where are they coming from? Well, it's super hard to predict because this is actually space weather. This is not weather from Earth. This is weather coming to us from space. And it's also called the solar wind. So all of this activity starts on the surface of the sun, and then when it fires off an ejection toward our planet, we call that the solar wind. It's made up of these dense particles and charged electrons and protons. And as they hit Earth's magnetic shield and penetrate that, they hit Earth's magnetic field, and if they penetrate that, they get all the particles excited in our atmosphere and then create the aurora. The problem with trying to predict this kind of activity is that we know what's happening on the surface of the sun. We can see that. We've got spacecraft that are monitoring that and solar observatories. We know what's happening right outside the Earth. We have satellites and different things that are showing us what's happening outside of Earth or detecting some of those changes. But then we have 93 million miles in between where we have no idea what happens. So we can only predict this about 3 days in advance, and even then, we don't always get it right. The news never gets it right. No, actually, I bring this up because we have a lot of urban myths or urban legends in aurora chasing, and one of them is that if the news tells you that tonight at 10 o'clock the northern lights are going to be visible in all of Michigan, guess what's not going to happen? Aurora, our goddess of the dawn, is a little bit shy. She likes to be a little bit unpredictable and spontaneous. She doesn't appreciate that very much. So as soon as we try to predict an aurora storm and it makes the mass media or the mainstream media, nope. This is how it started. That's an actual image of our sun smiling out at you. This is how it's going. That was taken last October. Not so good. All right, so winding down here. You know, maybe you ignored the forecast, maybe you didn't catch the aurora, but on social media, everyone says, look at my photograph. It pops when you least expect it. It can happen when it's not predicted. It can last longer than we thought. It can come a day late. It can come a day early. It can happen anytime, kind of. And actually, even in the forecast, there's a huge margin of error. The margin of error with predicting space weather is typically plus or minus 10 hours. So Northern Lights at 10 o'clock, everyone. Oh, I meant tomorrow. During daylight. You can't see it during daylight. There are many methods for predicting aurora. You can go all the way from the apps on your phone. They're not really that helpful. Telegram app, though, has some great channels you can subscribe to for alerts, including one from the Michigan Aurora Chasers. Webcams are a great way. Most of the Aurora Chasers I know doing the best work started with webcams. We also use models to try to predict the space weather, and so we're looking at the sun, this little yellow dot, what it's firing off toward Earth, the tiny green dot, and whether it will hit us. This is the NASA WSA Enlil solar wind model. We can also look at trends in the data. How do we know it's going to happen? How do we know it's going to be good tonight? Starting from the bottom up, we can look at everything from the temperature of the solar wind, which doesn't matter too much, to the speed, how fast is it coming at us, the density, how much of it is coming at us. Phi is something we typically skip, and then this one right here is really the gatekeeper. I don't have time to explain it tonight, but that BZ, that pesky BZ, is going to decide whether to make or break your night. So I highly recommend getting started with the ovation model, but even if you do, this is measuring hemispheric power. We are looking at the globe from the top down, from the North Pole down, the top half of the Earth. The auroral oval is always rotating around the North and South poles. If you use this model, keep in mind, first one's a video, that's everywhere. It's mostly showing the past 24 hours. The second one, we in the Aurora circles call this the red donut. It always looks pretty red. It's never very accurate. And then the last one is really good. This is the 30-minute to real-time model. That's actually going to show you what's going to happen in the short term with some pretty good reliability. So, how do we know if we're getting aurora tonight? Well, friends, I hate to tell you this now that we've been sitting here listening to me gab forever, but it's happening tonight. I got a major alert. There's a chance. It's also cloudy, though, so if anyone has a private jet, that'd be really great. Private jet? Anybody? Actually, what we're going to look for is some certain criteria. This is called geomagnetic activity, or G-storms. We get to storm levels. Once we hit those geomagnetic storms, a G2 storm here on the first image can reach the entire state of Michigan. That's equivalent to a K6. And we didn't talk about the KP scale, but you don't need it. You don't need it. The second one is the ovation model. When you're looking at how many gigawatts of hemispheric power it takes to bring aurora to Ann Arbor. If you're using a camera, about 60 gigawatts, really more like 90 gigawatts or more, or watching this model turn red, that's going to bring aurora to the entire state. So just picture Back to the Future and getting electrocuted. Needs more gigawatts. All right, and finally, very favorable solar wind data can also help you on your game, and we can teach you all of that on the Michigan Aurora Chasers. There's no limit to what you can see, and if you don't, you can be like my friend Levi Johnson in Alaska, who had clouds on the best night of the year, and just draw on your camera, make a little photo, lots of pretty colors. Poor kid. This is a portrait in lights. This is me with my fellow admin, Nate Stovall. We're the two who started the Michigan Aurora Chasers. And this was taken last October in Grindstone City, Michigan. We led a live chase. We do that all the time. Feel free to join us or grab advice on my blog, grab my book, Beyond the 45th Parallel. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Melissa. Let's clap it up for Melissa. Hey. Alrighty. Now, if you have a question for Melissa, please catch up with her during the break. It is currently 8:08 p.m. Let's return. Let's carry the one. 8:16, which is 8 minutes from now. Get a drink, use the restroom, walk around, tip, tip, tip. Those bartenders. Thank you, guys. Cue was perfect. It snapped me back to reality. Alrighty, if you can make your way back on over, we are going to get started once again. So I am here to introduce our next speaker. He is Paul Buzzard. Paul is a conservation. Oh, okay. Let's clap it up for Paul Buzzard. Oh, that was sorry, that was loud. I'm sorry, ma'am. Paul is a conservation biologist, National Geographic explorer, and regenerative farmer. His work in Armenia began as director of conservation with the Detroit Zoo and continues as a regenerative farmer at Detroit Flight Path Farm and as a conservation technician with the Michigan Climate Smart Farms project at the Washtenaw County Conservation District. He is Paul. You guys can clap.
Thank you, Jacob.
Perfect.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the star of the show. This is the Prouseless cat, also known as Grumpy Cat or Manul. And just to give you an idea, this is sort of baseline. This guy is actually in a pretty good mood. They only get grumpier looking from there. Partly because they are so grumpy looking. They've got pretty big social media following. They've got TikTok videos, and they've got social presence. They're really popular in zoos, and that's why. And actually, that's where the urine soaked socks come in. Is the work with zoos. I wanted to collaborate with zoos because, like I said, they're popular. I love involving conservation work with animals that are actually at the zoo. And of course, the Kardashians. We'll get to them, but first, this work takes place mostly in Armenia. So let's go to Armenia. Has anybody been to Armenia? Woo! Okay, there we go. Great place. Oh, there we go. Here's Armenia. It's this country right here. Now we're in Southwest Asia, so we're between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. A little country about the size of like Maryland, so kind of a tiny little country, but really, really incredibly beautiful and incredibly diverse. Again, just to give you a sense, you've got Turkey to the west, Iran to the south, Azerbaijan to the east and west, and Georgia, the rest of Russia, up here to the north. And Armenia, like I said, is pretty small, but it goes from the hot deserts down here by Iran up to the Caucasus Mountains. So it's really incredibly diverse place. And it's actually part of, here it is again, it's right tucked in here in the Caucasus biodiversity hotspot. You think of biodiversity hotspots, you think of Upper Amazon, Madagascar, Southeast Asia. It's also a really incredibly biodiverse area, like I said, because it goes from deserts up to the mountains with forests and prairies in between. So it's right in here, incredibly diverse area. In part because it's at the sort of the junction of three different what are called biogeographical realms. So it's pretty close to the junction of Eurasia, or the Palearctic here, the Afrotropical, and the Indo-Malayan. And Armenia is about right in here. So for instance, you've got brown bears from Eurasia, You've got striped hyenas in Armenia coming from Africa, and at least historically, you've got tigers, or these days you've got pheasants and a lot of diverse birds coming from this area. So it's really just a mix of these 3 different biogeographical regions. Incredibly interesting place to work. And now for the Kardashians. I also love Armenia because culturally it's, wow, incredible place. And there's a ton of Armenians who live around the world, especially in America, especially in LA, like the Kardashians. Also Cher Sarkeesian, right here. Locally, more, I guess you can't see that, but this is local representative, local state rep, Mary Manoogian. She's a former state rep from, I think, Bloomfield Hills area. Also, System of a Down. Any System of a Down fans? Actually, are there any Armenian Americans here tonight? Okay, thank you, David. If you know anybody whose name ends in, whose name ends in IAN or YAN, it's a good chance they are Armenian Americans. And actually, just to give you kind of background of sort of how this project sort of evolved or progressed, I used to work at the Detroit Zoo as the director of conservation, and it started off with these guys. These are Armenian vipers, and I was approached by the reptile curator to support a reptile center in Armenia to help breed and reintroduce these vipers. About the same time, I read a book or read an article about Armenian brown bears and brown bear conflict. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. We could do this potentially. So I reached out to Armenian colleagues, and they said, great. So I started some bear conflict work. Bears coming into villages, eating livestock or agricultural products, and just kind of how to stop that or how to try to slow that down. And while we were there, we heard not only bear conflict but also otter conflict. Otters eating fish from fish ponds, which really rang a bell because this is from the Detroit Zoo. This is the Edward Mardigian, and again, Mardigian, Armenian Americans, right? They are some of the biggest supporters of the Detroit Zoo, and they actually support the river otter habitat. So I thought, great, we'll do otter research in Armenia, partially, from the support of the Mardigian family, which was perfect. And that turned into Pallas's cat, right there. Okay, and just a little bit more about Pallas's cat. This is a map of the range. This bit here in orange, or orangey yellow. This is kind of the range. You see, it goes from the highlands of Russia through Mongolia down to China, through Central Asia, Iran, up here. Here's Armenia. When you get to Armenia, though, it's this other color. That's because they're thought to be extinct or regionally extinct. So that's also why we heard about the potential of Pallas's cat being there. We thought, great, we can actually see if they're actually still there, maybe see how they're doing. Unfortunately, my colleague, well, not unfortunately, it's all good. But my colleagues, Crozian et al. Up here, they kind of stole our thunder right here. Because they actually were given a camera trap video of a Pallas's cat up here in the northeast, a place called Tavush up here. So we know for sure they're there, but we don't know how well they're doing, what their status is in the rest of Armenia. So there's still a lot to do. Actually, my colleagues, they found these authors here, Karuzian et al., they found these green areas of potential Pallas's cat habitat. But we found additional areas where they likely are. Those don't show up very well, but this is the area where we work at now. We work at a place called Ergosotin, a place called the Erz Ridge, and a place called Norvak down here. So those are the areas that we're going to see right here. Okay, just to give you an idea of kind of what the habitat looks like in Armenia. Here is Ergosotin, and we had 3 camera traps from a couple years, from September to March 2022. This is the Norvak Gorge. We had a few more cameras, 5 cameras there from 2021 to 24. And the Erz Ridge has become kind of our focus for the Pallas's cat research. There we had 8 cameras, and we set an additional 5 cameras last October for a little over 4 years. And just to give you an idea of, again, the geography, if you look here, this is actually Mount Ararat. If you remember, if you've been to Sunday school, remember the idea is that Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat. Officially, or actually, it's actually in Turkey, but Mount Ararat is very important culturally to Armenia, so it's part of the old Armenia, so it's nice to get a picture. And the dream is to have a camera trap and have a cat walk by and get a picture with Mount Ararat in the background. That's the dream shot. Okay, and here's some of my colleagues, and that's again, I've been talking about camera traps. That's what they're setting right there. If you know camera traps, they've just really revolutionized conservation biology. It's just little cameras that you strap to a tree or strap to a rock, like we are there. Animal walks by, it senses its heat and motion, takes a picture, 24/7, incredible. So we rely almost entirely on camera traps and camera trap footage, but the Pallas cat has been renowned for being really difficult to trap. So that's really why I thought it'd be great to work with zoos to get some urine from the cats to put in front of the camera trap as kind of a lure to attract the Pallas cat. So that's the kind of what sort of started the zoo collaboration. And here is this is Olaf from the Potter Park. He's in a pretty good mood actually. This is Olaf from Potter Park Zoo. I think he's been transferred to another zoo, but he's been a machine. He has provided a ton of urine. He always goes in the same spot. The curators are like, yeah, how much you need? They give me like a box of urine. So this is Olaf. Thank you, Olaf. And here comes the urine-soaked socks. So I get these, 10, 20 vials of urine, and you can take it into, I want to get it into the country, right? It's legal. It's an animal product. It's not like blood or skin, so it's legal to bring it in. But getting through customs with 20 vials of urine would cause a lot of questions. So what I do, I take the urine and I soak my socks. And I put those in bags, and in bags, and in bags. And if I get stopped by customs, I can say, well, I just got to do my laundry or all. much easier than vials of urine. So that's the urine-soaked socks. And then we just tie these onto a branch or under a rock, and it's great. It's been great for the cats. And here are some of the cats. This is not a Pallas cat, but this is what's called an Afro-Asiatic wildcat. Felis libica, which has been great right here, and they've got really kind of unique spotted patterns. We're kind of working on a paper to show the effect of that. It's a really great cat. Even better cat though. This is a Persian leopard. See down here. Hopefully this will work. Oh yes. Look, he's missing his left paw. Look! Hey, look how fit he is though. Look how nimble. He's checking out that sock. I told you, it works. So look at that. Beautiful. And actually, my colleagues that Corrosion et al., who kind of stole my thunder, they know, yeah, we know this guy. We get pictures of him for the last year or two. So he's doing very well. Really impressive. And so but now I need a drum roll from our one potential Pallas cat. I know, but we were thrilled still. And if this is a cat, I mean, it could be okay. Here's Pallas cat up here. Look at the flat head, the kind of flat ears. Look at that big thick tail. It's definitely not this. Again, this is the Afro-Asiatic wildcat. It's not that. If it's a cat, it's probably a Pallas cat, but it could be a badger. but we have cameras. We have cameras sit there now, so hopefully we'll get more pictures of better pictures of a Pallas cat. And what we did get, though, this is, I guess, completely different tax altogether, but just up from that cat picture, or potential cat picture, we did get a Mouflon sheep herd, which for us was great, because Mouflon sheep are a real conservation priority in this area, especially because Mouflon sheep are that's where domestic sheep come from, is from Mouflon sheep. So if we want to improve the mouflon sheep or domestic sheep in the future, we can breed them with mouflon sheep. So very good. So even if Pallas cat aren't there, mouflon sheep are there. So that's great data. And as for future plans, in a couple months, I'll be going back to check those cameras, hopefully with beautiful pictures of Pallas cat and kittens. That's the dream. And also at that Urts Ridge, where that picture was, that potential picture, also the mouflon sheep, and that's actually the real focus of the research. The Pallas cat are great, but the real focus is setting up protected areas, both at that Urts Ridge and also a little farther down at the Norvant Gorge. So Pallas cat, great. The mouflon sheep will be great data to help set up those protected areas. And hopefully we'll get pictures of leopards, because leopards are a real conservation priority also in Armenia. So hopefully we'll get pictures of those guys, and we can set up these protected areas in Urts. And also a little farther down Norvank, where actually you remember that the leopard who missed his left paw. That's likely because he passed through this Arpa River area and probably stepped in a snare set for otters. That's probably what we think. And actually, this is an otter hotspot, so we'll hopefully get that protected also, get the snares out of there, protect the otters, protect the leopards, and potentially protect the Pallas cat. And my colleagues are our project has gone from vipers to bears to otters to Pallas cat to mouflon sheep. And now it might also go to newts. And that's where my my zoo colleagues come in. Actually, one of my first trips, my first or second trip, David Vardukian, amphibian curator or keeper, who's back there somewhere. There he is. He gave me a beautiful color picture of all these different. This species actually is at the zoo, I think still, right, David? Good. This Nurega, this beautiful, charismatic, beautiful black and yellow newt. And there's also, this is from like the Zagros Mountains of Iran. But there's little mountain pockets here and there with other different species, also beautifully colored black and yellow newts. So there's potential for another species to be undescribed in Armenia of this same genus, this Nuragus. So that's, and my colleagues think that it's possible. So we always kind of keep that in mind. But the focus now is on these other incredibly charismatic newts down here. Look at this. It looks like a dinosaur. Northern banded newt and the Caucasian smooth newt. These we know are there. I mean, they're pretty rare, but they're there. A lot of times they end up at the zoo. They're pretty important in the pet trade for obvious reasons. Wouldn't you love having this in your aquarium? A lot of times they end up at the Yerevan Zoo. That's the capital of Armenia, Yerevan. End up at the zoo, and then they work to reintroduce them back to the wild. And this species hasn't been seen since like some Russian surveys back in the 70s or 80s. So hopefully we can work and find these guys. We did a little bit of work last October. Again, for the Pallas cat, we were down here in this western area. For newts, we're up here by the Georgian border. These wetlands up here. Here's a wetland we visited in here. It was a little too late for newts because they were mostly hibernating by now. But we go back in June, we'll set out some live traps and hopefully catch and see some newts. And also, it's a great chance to work, again, I said with the Yerevan Zoo, to work more closely with them and judge the success of their reintroduction program and really just start a relationship with the Yerevan Zoo. So I'm pretty excited about the new directions for the project. And with that, I'd like to thank the Potterbrook Zoo, Olaf, and the Potterbrook Zoo for the urine and some funding, and also for some Pallas cats over here at the Hogel Zoo. So thank you. Sure. Gotcha. Any questions? Yes. No, I always make sure they're wool socks so they break down. I don't use any of they're wool. I make sure they're wool socks, and they are just they break down. I think probably what happens probably is I think foxes get them eventually. Foxes probably steal them and take them away. But yes, in back I think. The question is, if I heard you right, is there any cats that have been bought by people that are released in Armenia? Is that what the question? Okay, not that I know of. I mean, because they're definitely historically they were for sure there, but Russians, they love furs. I mean, for forever. So most were hunted out from that. So they definitely were there at one time. But I don't know if any had been. Pets are released. I don't know. Yes.
How big are pouches?
About the size of like a big house cat, essentially. Yeah.
So you put the urine socks to attract the animals, but you also desensitize the camera or disinfect the cameras?
No, the question was, the question was, do we like disinfect the cameras? We make sure we use gloves, usually gloves that kind of handle the urine, so they won't. But yeah, that's a good point. We don't. We wear gloves to make sure. And some animals like. Yeah, we don't. I guess, like I said, we handle it with the gloves and we touch the socks. So I kind of think that some of that urine scent gets on the camera also. So, and I've gotten pictures of cats, just not Pallas cat, but other cats looking right in the camera. So I think they definitely can see it's something and want to check it out. So that would actually be good for us.
One more ball.
Okay, one more question. Yes.
Are you looking for any research assistants?
I got David back there. I think is gonna, but if I get the funding, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, folks. So that concludes Nerd Night. Might be 99, probably not. I don't know. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We will see you not in May, but we will see you again hopefully in June, on June 19th at Top of the Park in Ann Arbor outdoors. It's gonna be lovely, lovely weather. I already know. I consulted my tarot guy. He says it's gonna be beautiful weather. So yes, one last thing. Let's give another round of applause for our wonderful presenters this evening. It would be so helpful to us on your way out if you could stack your chair up and put it towards the back of the wall.